If you don't want to appear in the recording, you can just turn your cameras off and ask your questions via the chat. So welcome everyone. I'm Paula Donahue. I am the project manager at EuroClio, one of them, many working at the project of Monumental Challenges. I'll just briefly explain what Monumental Challenges is for those of you that are not familiar with it. So it's a EU-funded project. It's Erasmus Plus project that we are running as a consortium. EuroClio is one of the partners, but we have Education for the 21st Century in Serbia, History Lab in Denmark, and the American International School in Cyprus, in Nicosia. So we are all a consortium, and we are working together in this project that is looking at how to teach contested histories in the classroom with using physical representations of the past. So mainly monuments and street names and statues and memorial plaques and so on. So this project actually comes or is inspired by the Contested Histories Initiative, which I'm also very happy to be the director now, which is a mapping study of cases of contestation over legacies of the past in the public space. So for this, we have been working in the past years on mapping different cases around the world. And we now have more than 590 cases in 133 countries. And we have been working on this map that you should be able to see now in your screen that would allow you as educators, but also policymakers and researchers to filter around the cases that we have right now. This is a test version, which will be launched very soon, but also it does not have the 500 cases yet. There's only 300. But for example, here, if you're interested in knowing what is in your country, so for example, we can go to Italy. You can see what are the cases in Italy, but you can also filter through the historical legacies, for example, that they are linked to, which are here, sorry. So for example, you can see Italian cases linked to colonialism or Italian cases linked to authoritarianism, which they're none yet, but it will be more, or fascism. So these, and then you can click here and then you can see the information. So you have a literal description and the legacies. And if you click here, and hopefully you can see when I move around, it will take you to the Contested Histories website where you can read more about the case study if it's published yet, because not all of them are published yet. But these case studies were the inspiration behind the Monumental Challenges project. And the idea was to look at how can we use these case studies to teach about contested histories. With that being said, we are not only a consortium, but we also very happy to work with teachers around Europe that are testing some of the lessons that we planned. And we have two of them with us today, which are Stefania Garrioni and Emma Bate, which will share some of their experiences with teaching contested histories and in the classroom, and also with using some of the case studies and the lessons that we develop, but also different methodologies. So that being said, I will give the floor to Emma. And I'll let you introduce yourself and just go with your presentation.
Thank you so much, Paula. Yes, my name is Emma. I'm a teacher in a high school in Italy, and I'm using the kit of the case studies of this project. And I'm here just to give you some examples on how to implement these very useful case studies in your classroom. So I now try to share my screen. Are you?
We can see.
Now? Okay. Always problem. Let's see.
I can share it for you if not.
Yes, maybe it would be better. That's why. Scheda Chrome now, maybe, yes, maybe I'm...
Now, yes.
Okay. Okay. So this is a presentation, but don't worry, I will be very fast, and I hope not boring. I just want to be in... Okay, can you see like this?
Yes.
Okay. This is the first project I would like to talk about. Now it's better like this. It's the mind map project that I worked on with my students 1 year ago. It was a project we participated as a classroom to another project that was a national project called Decolonize Your City. The students could participate in this wiki document. They were looking for places and testimonies and other information around the surroundings where we live in the south of Italy, Caserta, Naples, to find all the spots, all the places that can be that could be inserted in this map and in this project. So they give their contribution, making research and taking photos and doing a sort of exploration of the territory, just to testimony how is possible to find close to your house places that can be contested, that can be the start of a controversy, and monuments that can be of a debate because they come from a period of history that can be very difficult to understand. I'm talking, of course, about totalitarian regime and in particular about the fascist period. This is a digital tool that I want to recommend. It's totally free and is very user-friendly. I have used it with my students for lots of projects and also for memorial for monumental challenge. The name of this tool, after I will write in the chat, is StoryMap.js. I will give also the link, so don't worry about it. Well, you can see is a very easy tool that allows students to interact with a digital map, because I teach geography but also history. I'm a history/geography teacher because in Italy those two subjects are very often go together in the high school. So in this case, I asked my students to make some search for other contested monuments in Italy. And for example, in this case, this is the Gran Duca Ferdinando de' Medici monument in Livorno in Tuscany, and he has around 4 moors. This is the name that during the Renaissance was given to Muslims, and we started a conversation, a debate on this monument, and it's possible to do a digital storytelling using this tool, because you can spot on the map, to locate on the map the place where the monument is. You can add, like in a presentation, a slide, and you can write the story digitally of this monument, expressing all the narratives about this monument. And it's very easy to use. It's very, I repeat, very user-friendly. You can see the screenshot of the main page of the website. And after, when you have inserted all the information in the slide, you can see in the map, and you can read everything about just very, very easy steps, and your digital story on the map is ready. Another tools that I would like to suggest to my colleagues is Chialo. What is Chialo? Chialo is a debate digital platform. So it's very useful to involve students and classrooms in projects with other schools abroad. For example, for a twinning project, for an Erasmus Plus project. If you want about a contested monument, you can do with other students that are far from your country, simply using this tool. In this case, I just put a question on the Chialo platform. It's very easy to enter in the platform. You just have to open a profile, but it's very easy process. And I asked everyone on Chialos, I asked the monument of the Four Moors in Livorno should be removed. And the student answered to these simple questions, just writing pros and cons. And everyone can be involved in this conversation, this debate, just sharing the link. Now I will show very fast a very hands-on and practical way I use the case study kit of Monumental Challenge repository. In this case, I have taken Mary Wollstonecraft sculpture in London because we worked on feminism and especially on these figures of from Enlightenment century, from 18th century, because Mary Wollstonecraft was an English example of a proto-feminism. You can find her case study after I will share the case study link in the chat together with the other tools links, but you can find her case study of course in the repository where there are lots of other examples. It's a kit, so it's available for everyone. The way I use the kit case studies is very simple. I just try to share it in a five steps procedure. First of all, I try to start to sparkle the curiosity of my students, just giving them a quotations from the quote, very important sentence from the character. In this case, the quote from Mary Wollstonecraft is, all the sacred rights of humanity are violated by insisting on blind obedience, because of course she was one of the first feminists in history. This is a very particular sentence from her. After I show the image, the picture of the monument, the statue in this case, I ask my student to look it, to note down the very first impressions without giving them any information about the character that is represented in the monument. I just ask them if they like or don't like the representation of the figure. I ask them who or what this could represent, and they just share what they think with their classmates. After I pass to the introduction of the case study, I give them the dossier that can be found in the kit, and I ask them some key questions, and I explain when and where the sculpture was realized, who was Mary Wollstonecraft, and what Mary on the Green Campaign is, because it was a campaign that was made before the monument was realized, to build something to remember this important proto-feminist from England. In the third steps of my procedure, I do with my student this jigsaw activity. Is something that English teachers usually use, this strategy. I just divide the dossier in several parts. Several pieces of information, and I give those pieces of information to different groups of students. So each group work on a piece of information, and after they share, they summarize all the information together. It's a way to work in a collaborative approach, and to share the information, to concentrate on a particular part of the whole picture in order to explain to their classmates in a very detailed way. One of the last part of this procedure is maybe the most important, is the discussion time. In the discussion time, I just give them a sort of hook question, a very important question to reflect on. In this case, the question was, is this an appropriate way to represent feminism in public art? Because, of course, the monument, the statue dedicated to Anne Wollstonecraft was very contested and debated because she's nude, and this representation for some people was not enough important to describe the characteristics and peculiarity of this woman. It was just an every woman nude, and it was impossible to catch the particularity of this woman. So I give them lots of some questions to reflect on this important question, and I give them also some sentence frame, because sometimes this debate is in English, is not in Italian language, that is our native language. So they need also a sort of language scaffolding to be able to talk and to debate about this. And often the conversation goes on Chialo or other debate platform. At the end, we have the wrap up, the conclusion part of the lesson. You can see here the final survey. We collect the idea always digitally. In this way, we can conserve, we can keep all the things they because you need to read the report and the case study report before doing it. But anyway, they participate, my students participate in the debate, just writing down what they think about in this sort of digital clipboard. I used another free digital tool called Idea Boards. I will also the link to this very nice tool. The exit ticket that usually I give to my students it consists in a sort of a final reflection in which I ask them to read the note they jotted down when the lesson started. So I recap the beginning of the lessons with them, and I ask them, have you changed your mind? Are your thoughts changing or are the same about this monument? What do you think now? Have you changed your mind? In this way, they can reflect on the whole situation and express their opinion, their final opinion on the contested case. We are always obsessed by assessment, and of course I try to evaluate whatever I do with my students. In this case, you can find a very nice rubric I use with them when they discuss and debate on contested monuments. I give in this presentation there is of course there is the link. So this was my last slide of my presentation, and sorry if I was too fast, but I'm here to answer to your questions, and those are my contacts if you want to reach me. And thank you so much for your attention. I stop to share. I will also give all the okay, stop the sharing. Thank you to
Thank
you.
you.
I give you all the links. I just repeat the links to the debate platform, the link to the dossier, to the to the case study of the sample I gave, and everything you need. I just write in the chat now. Thank you. I'm here for your questions because at 5 p.m. I will be. I have to quit. I have to stop this connection. So if you need to ask me something now.
Yes, you can also, if anyone has questions, can also add them to the chat. And then in the meantime, we'll give the floor to Stefania, who is our second presenter for today. And Stefania is also one of the teachers involved in the project. I think you need to
Can you see
unmute
my
yourself. Yes.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
My screen. Oh, sorry, there was a second of panic.
No worries. We can see it.
Okay.
And I'll leave the floor to you.
Thank you. I will try to be as concise as Emma was. I'm an IGCSE level and IB teacher, so my background is working in international schools. Do still work in international schools, so what I'm going to present is just something I've mainly done last year in the framework of middle years and diploma IB in Belgium. So essentially, I was teaching a unit on colonization and decolonization, and being in Belgium, my case studies was actually to look at the Belgian colonization of Congo between 19th and 20th centuries. And I've suddenly realized that in addition to the statue of Leopold II in Brussels, which is very famous, very contested, which is in the toolkit of contested histories, there are also some. There is actually Brussels and Belgium in more in general. It's really like crowded with monuments and memorial to the colonization. So I wanted basically to include the experiential learning and visit the sites into my kind of standard history teaching in the classroom. So because I did a bit of research before planning my unit, and of course researchers say that majority of researchers in education at the moment, they say that experiential learning increase the student engagement and the relevance of content for students. It can actually help students to enhance visual thinking, and also it can make some links between your classroom, your school, and the local community, which I think it's always something that we should probably promote, and maybe we're not really aware of the richness of these connections, of the connection that can be made. So in order to look at monuments and to include them in my units about colonization, since it was a little bit complex, since the topic of colonization, it is complex on its own, it's kind of sensitive, since I had an international population of students, but also some Belgian students in my classroom, I have decided to actually look at the monuments by using Project Zero routines. So they're been developed by Harvard Project Zero. It's just a part of Harvard Project Zero, which contains many other different things like playful learning and other kind of pedagogical tools. So the thinking routines are just just frameworks. Sorry for being so self-explanatory. Are just frameworks actually that will help students to kind of tackle very complex concepts. And they are free, they are available. And what I found out by using them is that you can just use them as for example, like at the beginning of your lesson plans as an initial stimulus activity, or you can actually use them and you can build the whole lesson around it. So 2 routines, I think, in my experience, have been extremely applicable to the study of public historical sites and monuments. So the first one, and this is again something like about Project Zero, but I will share with Paola the slides so you can have them. They're again helping. They will help students to actually to work in terms of evidential thinking. And so to treat actually the monument, the historical site, as a primary source. So this is the kind of the ultimate goal that you can reach. So one very interesting, and I will show you soon the monument with which I use this routine. It's called Part, Purposes, and Complexities. And it can be done on site if you take your students to the monument, but it can also be done in class if you have limitation and you cannot, like the monument's too far, or you cannot just, your school makes, like, I don't know, even like everyday trips very complicated. And we are all being like in the bureaucratical world of schools. So sometimes things are not that easy as they should be. So this routine can be done like in class and in front of the historical sites, essentially. And so in this case, but you don't choose an object. In this case, you will choose a monument. And then the students actually will have some time to look at these parts. So it can actually almost like unpack, okay, the different parts that there are on the monuments, whatever visual, written parts. They can think about the purposes. And then there is the kind of the most, again, difficult thing, which is actually reflecting about the complexities and thinking about the links between complexity in parts and purposes and the relationships between these elements. As I said, you can use it if you want to analyze the monument as a primary source, and it's something that you can do if you want to look at interpretation and legacy, colonization, or another topic. And it can be used at the beginning as an initial stimulus activity. So this is the monument I use this activity with, and it's in Brussels. It's a monument to the civilians who took part in the colonial expansion, and it suits this routine very well because it's visual, but it's also, there are some visual part, and there is this like a head, this statue at the top, but there is also a lot written on that. So students really, we spend actually almost 2 hours actually looking at the parts, the purposes, and the complexity of this monument. And I'm moving now to my second and last case study. So the second routine that I think it's extremely good, and again, it can be applicable to really any monument. I use it for the statue of Leopold II, which is in the toolkit of contested histories. It's called Find, Capture, Explain, Wonder. And this is, I will say, probably is more suitable if you go to the place itself with the student. Because they will not have to find the object or the scene, but they can find maybe a scene or a part of the monuments that can capture their eyes. And they can actually, like in a word or in a phrase, they can say what is capturing their attention. And then they will take time to look carefully at the item being the monument, or the item being a part of the monument. You can even divide your students in groups and assign to each student a part of the monument. And they can spend, I put 10 minutes, but it can be long, because they can take the smartphones and they can take pictures from very different angles of the monuments. They can draw it, and it's not an art class. So drawing is just like a cognitive, it's a tool for a cognitive activity. So they can draw and they can take picture of it, until when I had a student who had 50 pictures of the monuments that I'm going to show to you right now. And it will help them to focus on some very maybe complex ideas that are developed, or some contested narratives that are developed by that monument. And then they will actually write, or in bullet points, why, or in a paragraph, why it is complex. And then they will share, okay, what new ideas and new questions you have about this specific item. And this can work as your exit ticket if you want. So that's the monument I've used. It's actually very big. So it suited the activity very well, because it's huge. So the students can literally like walk on it, around it, and using like the camera or using a smartphone or using like drawing, it's very good because I mean, from my picture, you don't see really very well, but there are some written parts also on the back. And there are also, there are lots of scenes that are depicted there. They can, and these scenes are, they kind of caught my student attention very much. And I guess that is all from me. It was really like, these are some references, which I will again send to Paula with the rest of my presentation. Again, those are just like two frameworks for thinking, and they're very flexible. As I said, you can use them in a part of your lesson. You can build the lesson around it. They're so flexible that you can use them like as a scaffolding for essay writing. If you're asking your students to write an essay about the monument, there are really very, at least like I use them in 4 or 5 different ways at the moment. So, but thank you for your attention, and I guess I will give the floor back to Paula and Andreas. And
Yes,
thank you,
Stefania. Yeah, I'll take you out of the spotlight, and I'll give it to Andreas now.
Yes, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Just to briefly introduce myself, I'm a colleague of Paula's here at EuroClio. My name is Anna Solberg, and I'm working with her on this project called Monumental Challenges. And before, I mean, we really, with this this online meeting, let's call it, it's not your usual webinar, perhaps. We also wanted to hear a lot more from participants as well. If you're willing to share a bit about what you are doing around contested histories in your classroom, whether it's monuments or other difficult issues that you're dealing with your students, and we're keen to hear also from your experiences, whether it's a good experience or a bad experience. It's meant to be a bit of a sharing space as well. But before we get to that, but I just prompt you to start thinking a little bit if you want to share anything. But like I mentioned, before we go to that, I will also just briefly go back to our project again, the Monumental Challenges project, and share my screen to just highlight some of the stuff that we are actually working on and producing. Does this work? Yeah, it looks like it does. So here, basically what you have is the overview of the toolkit that we are in the finalization stage of with several lesson plans. In fact, this is now being piloted in schools across Europe, and it's an open invitation to also join that piloting efforts. Maybe one of my colleagues here can post a link to our announcement that we put on EuroClio.eu announcing its piloting efforts. And yeah, like Paula mentioned in the introduction, we started out the inspiration for all of this is the website contestedhistories.org, which also Emma and Stefania referenced a lot, and all the different cases you can find there. We took some of those cases and we made lesson plans that respond to different kinds of skills that we believe that students can actually achieve and develop by looking at this particular monument. I have to, yeah, and you can see the overview here. They touch on, we've used a few different concepts that may be familiar to some of you in thinking around these monuments and the kinds of skills that we wanted to transmit to the students. So we've used the competences for democratic culture of the Council of Europe as a framework. We've also used the historical thinking concepts as a framework, but we also added on a few of our own. But basically what we're trying to achieve here is that each of these lessons will focus on a particular skill, and the idea is that the lesson itself is adaptable. So you see here the statues that we have worked on. They go from their, the statue touching on different kinds of historical legacies, basically. So if you start on the top left, you have a statue that is about colonialism in the Netherlands and the history of colonialism in the Netherlands. But the lesson aims to tackle the question of how values change over time, and specifically looking at what you consider a national hero. And the other example in that category is from Serbia and so on. So you can see the different kinds of contestations and the different kinds of historical legacies that we tackle, but also they're all meant to transmit a particular skill. And as such, they are not meant to, you don't have to use this in your classroom with the exact same monument. The idea is that we hope that they are transferable enough that you see, well, if you would like to work on media literacy using a statue, you take one of the examples that we have here, whether it's Robert E. Lee or the Katyn Massacre memorials in Poland, and you going through it, you could, in theory, we hope at least, just switch the monument that we have used as an example with a monument that responds more to your students' interest, or is based in your city, or at least in your country, perhaps. So that is the gist of it. And I think with that, perhaps let's open the floor a little bit for questions, comments, and yeah, really curious to hear from teachers or educators that have joined us today online to hear more about your experiences. And if you, of course, if you have questions for Emma and Stefania or us here at EuroClio as the project team of Monumental Challenges. I will try to stop sharing my screen.
As I said before, you can ask your questions in the chat, or you can raise your hand and then you can ask them yourself directly. In the meantime, there is a question from Katinka on the chat. I think it says that it's regarding the second talk, but it could also be applied to the first. So she said, I really appreciate the hands-on approach in terms of finding, exploring monuments by taking close pictures and drawing them. My follow-up question touches upon historical thinking in particular. To what degree are questions like the following asked? By whom was the monument built? Who does it remember? Who is not remembered? And why is it contested? So I will leave.
So I think that in terms of historical thinking and of historical concept, I think we are into evidential thinking and interpretation. Probably if you look at the UK historical thinking, or I don't know if you look at the Canadian historical thinking, there are two different schools or more than one of historical thinking, but I would say evidential thinking and interpretation mostly. And those type of questions, but they come up normally in the last part of the routine, actually, when you have the explain or you have the wonder, because they come up after. So the routine are meant to be a tool for the students to kind of start to approach, to start to kind of get in contact, let's say, with the complexity of the monument, because in my experience, it has not been always that easy to work on contested monuments, on contested histories. And so the thinking routines are a way actually to scaffold student thinking, particularly at the beginning. So they are really a scaffolding, and in the explain or in the wonder part of the routine normally. So when actually the cognitive thinking of the student starts to be more and more articulating, then you have actually you can ask this question, and this question will emerge quite naturally from the work that the students will do. And my experience has been like that.
I hope this was a satisfactory answer to Katinka. If you have a follow-up question, Katinka, please do also, you're welcome to take the floor if you would like. Oh, I see a thumbs up, that's great. Moving on then, any other questions? Well, it was a very practical question from John, but I think we'll deal with that in the chat. And the answer is yes. So any other comments, or as I mentioned earlier, I also would be really interested in hearing your own experiences, whether it's a good experience or a bad experience. I think it's also quite interesting to hear from anyone who has struggled with this in the classroom or outside of the classroom. If you're willing to share, that would be wonderful, but of course I'm not going to put anyone too much on the spot either. Would any of the speakers we had actually want to share if you've had an experience that didn't quite go to plan? Was there anything you could learn from that?
If I can, I will just, and then I will leave the floor to Emma, and then I will shut myself forever. So the monument I showed in the first one, actually, the monument actually to the people who participated actually in the colonial experience. That was very complicated. That was extremely complicated. And I took actually a upper middle years class, so they were students of 15 years old, and the monument was very complex because there are a lot of things written in that in French and in Flemish, and it's not only a linguistic thing. There is also this head actually that it's kind of modeled under almost an African statue, which should be something that you will think is going to kind of show an appreciation of Africa. Instead, it's something, it's there to instead to remember the people actually who went there to colonize Africa. So it was very difficult to tackle. The routine was very helpful, but I had to try it out essentially with kids a couple of times before I started to kind of get used to the way they were handling complexity, which often was basically by don't know what to say very often. And the routine is it's very helpful in that, because it's helping them even take a picture, or drawing the thing is helping them to really like unpack the idea. But it didn't go very well at the beginning. I have to do it more than once until when I got used, I guess, with to the topic and the complexity that I was trying to tackle with them, if that makes sense.
Can I add something? In my case, I try to always to choose something very provoking when I choose the case study in the kit. For example, the case study of Mary Wollstonecraft's son was chosen because she's nude, she's represented nude. The question was how, if it's right or not to represent the feminist in such a way, if we lose the original message she did with her life and her work. So my suggestion to our colleagues is to give a very provocative questions, to not give too much information from the beginning, in order to let our students free to have their own ideas on the monument, to not influence too much what they think. And also the jigsaw technique that I suggested is a way to share information in order to be able to confront all the different parts of the whole picture. It's a way to gather knowledge step by step, piece by piece, to not give them the already cooked food. I don't know if you understand what I mean. It's better they build their own knowledge alone, without having too much information to work on. This is my suggestion. Of course, when you let your students free to debate, they are always happy. So my impression is that this approach works in the classroom, works very well.
Thank you very much, Emma, for sharing also a bit on that. For our monumental challenges toolkit with the lesson plans that we have made, I just wanted to mention that we have also kind of differentiated some of them that are meant to be applied in, let's say, I think we use the term high stakes context. So we do realize that in certain contexts, in certain classrooms, you will have issues that are incredibly contested and difficult to talk about. So we have also included some strategies for doing that. And I just thought of that in the context of what you were saying, that you let them think first and so on. And I think that works in most of the cases, but you can also imagine perhaps cases where an issue is really incredibly contested and you need some kind of different technique to use. So just wanted to share that as well. Well, any questions from the audience? I also just a question on sort of the reaction of your students as well for the projects that you did. I mean, you shared a little bit, but is there anything you can add on about how did they like this experience? And did you have also, for instance, when you're teaching in Belgium, Stefania, do you have students that have a background from the sort of the colony, let's say, and how do they react to this?
Yeah, some of them actually, yes, they had like grandparents that actually they went to Congo, so and like to be the colonizers at the end, and I think they were, I think they were aware, I think of the contestation. I think what they were not aware about, for example, in the case of, again, the monument with that head statue on the top, is the number of these monuments like that we have only in Brussels, for example. So it's like every town in Brussels capital region has basically monuments about that. So it's a lot, and I think that the children, I think for some of them, I think they were happy to the activity, but I realized that there was some discomfort as well to think that they were part, of that past from that side, let's say. So it was very, there was a lot of discussions, but I would say that I was lucky. It was an environment in which the students respected very much each other. So open conversation, but always within the in the room of respect and so on. So, but it's more like a feeling that I can share than like but sometimes the silences and the fact of not being sure what to say, that I think was what it made difficult for them to tackle this type of past.
No, great. And I do think it is also quite important to bring these kinds of conversations into the classroom. I was reminded of here at EuroClio, we just last week we have another ongoing webinar series which is about the history of anti-Semitism and teaching about anti-Semitism in the history classroom. And one of our webinar speakers, Professor Michał Bilewicz from Poland, he shared a very interesting study. It was not something he has done himself, but he referenced a study where he actually looked at levels of anti-Semitism within different groups in Belgium, incidentally, and found in this research that the students who had the most anti-Semitic inclinations or were perceived to be the most anti-Semitic were actually students with a Congolese background. And when doing follow-up research on that, the conclusion was that there is a sense of competition on victimhood. And if your difficult past and the massacre of Congolese people in Congo by the Belgian colonizers is not really very much recognized in the broader society, this fuels resentment and when a legacy is not really dealt with, it can be very painful, obviously, for people. And this actually led to then, in this particular case, also that you feel that your story is not being tackled. So why are the Jewish people getting all this attention then for their massacre? For the horrible things that happened to them. So just an interesting anecdote that I wanted to share in this regard, because I think it is quite important that these things are also brought into the education world and in schools. I see there's a comment. Paula, would you like to take over? Maybe you had a chance to read while I was talking.
It's just from Denberg explaining a little bit the situation in Northern Ireland, but I am aware of time. So I would also like to leave the floor to Emma if you have anything else to add or you want to share how the reactions of your students, because I know you need to leave in like 5 minutes.
Yes, thank you, Paula. Yes, I want to let you reflect about the fact that using this kind of approach, you can also let your students be more aware about the place where they live. I mean, we usually have these lessons in the classroom that are very long. The classroom is something that can be very short, close place, very narrow place for the students. With the project that we participated, Decolonize Your City and Mind the Map, as we called it, our students went outside the classroom, and this was a great way to take possess of the space around them, because too often our classroom are really asphytic. I mean, without oxygen for their minds. So in this way, they can see the classroom as the whole city, the whole place where they live. It's an example of space learning based approach, and I really suggest it. I really recommend it, because it's a way to make the lesson more moving, more participated, and more catching for our students that are too long time obliged to be stuck in their desk, sitting on the chairs without moving. There is not so much chances to move and to have a moving lesson. In this way, exploring the places around them, they can feel better and of course more excited, more motivated towards the topic. So I really recommend to approach the monuments around the city, around your school. I'm sure that you can find those examples also in places close to your school. There is no need to go very far, because in our cases we found lots of places linked to fascism and to the colonization period, also in Caserta, also very close where our school is. So I'm sure that for you will be the same. So take your students outside the classroom. Take your students out, make them breathe, make them leave the place around them, make them feel part of a project, something important. They can feel protagonist and not just a passive absorber of knowledge.
Thank you, Emma. And yeah, I'll go to the comment that was there. Is a comment from Demba talking about the situation in Northern Ireland. So he was saying about how the discourse around some of the monuments in Northern Ireland has changed as the public discourse has developed, and not, for example, some contested monuments of the past are now just left standing as acceptable divergence. And he quotes he mentions the example of Carlson outside of Stormknott. And yeah, I think that actually reflects a lot of the cases that you will find in the map that I showed earlier. And I will also say that once the map is launched, it would also hopefully help you to find those contested monuments near your cities, as Emma was mentioning. But I think there's a lot of cases that are very contested and they take a lot of news, and there's a lot happening, and then it just dies down and the contestation kind of stops. And they're just, most of the times they just stay there. But I think, speaking of education, I think that also has a very strong potential when you think about things to do with your students, because then also the students can know about the contestation, but also think of what will they do. For example, we have some of the lessons are going to thinking how like have some role play exercise to decide what would be or what will the students decide to do with the monuments, or what will they more focus on the remedies and decision making process behind these contestations on these monuments. But yeah, is there that's regarding the comment. I don't see anything else in the chat. So is there any other questions? Anyone that would like to share their experiences and challenges when doing this type of activities with their students?
If there are no more questions, I just have one last shameless recommendation and promotion, self-promotion of EuroClio events. I mentioned this a webinar series on addressing anti-Semitism, and we had actually announced that we would also talk about Israel-Palestine as part of this webinar today. We had a last-minute cancellation for one of the speakers, so this is why we haven't addressed it today. But there will be another opportunity for that because as part of this addressing anti-Semitism webinar series, we also have one session devoted especially to the current situation in the Middle East. And it's about addressing both anti-Semitism and anti-Muslim hatred in the context of the conflict that is ongoing. So I will just share a link here in the chat for anyone who kind of joined for that aspect. There will be a future opportunity.
Thank you, Andreas. Is there no other questions? I would like to thank Emma and Stefania, also considering that it's 5 and Emma has to leave to another meeting. And thank you both for such wonderful presentations and sharing your experiences. And also thank you everyone that joined us today. As I mentioned, this is the first of a series that would have 4 different sessions. The next one will be on looking at the examples from the US and how Brown University has some lessons and they did some projects on how to teach about the Confederacy and using the examples of Confederate statues there in the States. So the next session will be with some speakers from the US. And then after we'll have a session devoted to how to use this toolkit and these lessons in the teacher training setting. So for example, if you're training future teachers, how to train them on using these methodologies and these talking about this context with their students in the future. And the last one will have teachers again joining, and it will be more focused on their experiences with testing the lessons that Andreas presented before and are a part of our toolkit. You can find all the information in the website. Also, where of course keep an eye open for all of your EuroClio social media newsletters. You'll receive all the information there as well. And if there are no last questions nor comments, I will really thank you everyone for joining today and let you go and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Bye. Ciao.